Everyone. I'm Ernie Humphrey, the CEO of Treasury Webinars. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for our webinar today, AP, the real value of AP automation, communication, collaboration, and control. First and foremost, I hope that everyone is safe and healthy, and I want to share with you my sincerest appreciation for all of you that have friends and family on the front lines of fighting the coronavirus, and I know I can say the same for our webinar partner today, Stamply. We are honored to have Stamply as our webinar partner today, and their strong commitment to thought leadership and serving the Treasury, accounting, accounts payable, and finance professions are what helped us make this webinar possible today. The good news is that accounts payable is finally getting the attention it deserves at many companies. However, many companies are being sold on investing in technology that fails to empower companies to maximize the ROI realized for this investment. AP done right means mitigating the inherent productivity drag on all employees involved in AP processing. This encompasses employees up and down the office of the CFO. This does not mean that AP should be viewed as a profit center. Today, you will discover what the new remote reality means for accounts payable and how companies are leveraging technology that brings invoices to life and facilitates effective collaboration across internal departments and with suppliers to mitigate invoice processing costs, minimize time misallocation within and beyond accounts payable, and delivers control of the P2P process end to end in the remote reality. Before we delve in, I'll offer a few quick words about Treasury Webinars, cover a few housekeeping items, and then I'm going to cover our learning objectives, as they offer the pillars of our value proposition for you for investing an hour of your valuable time with us today. At Treasury Webinars, we offer virtual events designed to empower Treasury, accounts payable, and accounts receivable success at companies of all sizes across all industries. We only do what we do best, which is virtual events. Now for the exciting housekeeping items. Stay in your chairs, everyone. Those of you interested in receiving CTP credits, you'll have to answer all of our polling questions, remain online for the duration of the webinar, and take the post-webinar survey, which will launch immediately following the conclusion of the webinar today. If you have any questions regarding CTP credit or would like a copy of today's presentation, please send an email to ernie@treasurywebinars.com. I have also put my email in the chat area of your GoToWebinar control panel. Speaking of the chat area in your GoToWebinar control panel, I'd love to hear from you during the webinar today, and I'll do my best to get any questions you might have answered at the tail end of our webinar today for the Q&A session, time permitting. I'm going to warn you, we might not have time because I've done a lot of updating to my content in the midst of the remote reality. Also, technology-related issues. You're going to get a much better sound quality if you are experiencing the webinar via your phone. So just best practices. And finally, I appreciate everyone's consideration in taking a short survey at the end of the webinar today. We always strive to improve the ROI we offer our event attendees for their valuable time. So what are our learning objectives for you today? What do I want you to be able to say that you're able to do after the webinar is over? I'd like you to be able to identify specific opportunities to be even more productive in the next normal. We have the opportunity to be even better. Understand how to leverage technology to deliver AP success at your company, and identify specific opportunities to lower cost, improve supplier relationships, and impact productivity across the enterprise at your company by leveraging the right AP-related technology. And finally, to be able to create and communicate a winning business case for investing in AP done right. And it's kind of hard to believe, but right now a lot of companies are investing in AP automation. The time is right, and it can be done in a very efficient manner. A few more learning objectives that I have today, which make my webinars unique. I want to make you smile, I want to make you laugh, and I want you to think and also take an action. And so if I haven't made you think and I haven't made you take an action, then I have failed, and you can give me a very bad webinar review. It's all about making you think and taking an action. So that action can just be connecting with me on LinkedIn, having maybe a virtual Zoom meeting with your colleagues in accounts payable, accounts receivable, or treasury, going out on LinkedIn and making a connection, looking at a new resource, looking at G2 Crowd and see what's the best AP automation providers. And so to me, my job is to not only help you ask the right questions, but also direct you to the right places to make yourself more valuable for your company and help drive your career success. So how are we going to accomplish our objectives? I mean, those are some pretty lofty objectives. So let's see how we're going to do that. First, we're going to talk coronavirus. I think it's extremely important. And one of the things that we'll do is we'll take a little bit of a deep dive on how this is really impacting accounts payable and how the new remote reality, also called the next normal, is an opportunity for us to all get to be first class, world class accounts payable pros. And we'll talk about some AP trends, kind of what's going on the market, what we're seeing, and what I see is some of how these trends might change over the next year or so. I'll also give you some tips on how to evaluate your AP process. And so really, if you look at what you need to do is you need to say, I need to take a good look in the mirror, right? Where am I at in terms of my accounts payable effectiveness? Take that honest look in the mirror, right? Where am I at, right? Where do I want to go, and what's it going to take for me to get there? Speaking of what it's going to take to get there, we're going to talk about AP technology. We're going to talk about your talent, and then we're going to talk about how to collaborate within and beyond accounts payable, which is even more important in the new remote reality. And then we'll dive a little bit into AP innovation and what we're seeing, and we're starting to see more and more artificial intelligence, but don't be afraid, the Terminator is not going to come to your house today. And then finally, and really importantly, some recommendations for action, which I often don't see on webinars. So some specific recommendations that I have for you to improve the offer valued from accounts payable at your company. And so, of course, I have to make you smile, and here's a cartoon I just got today. What if we didn't have, but obviously needed, what we didn't have, but obviously needed was an alarmist? And so obviously that's the opposite of what we really want. But I think that unfortunately a lot of companies in terms of accounts payable, they've had some alarming wake-up calls, of course. And so any company that was really pushing paper around and had manual processes and didn't have effective communication in place, they were like, how do I pay my suppliers? And that is really important. I know that companies may be looking to delay those payments, but we need to be able to pay our suppliers. So now it's more important than ever to show the value that you place on the relationships. And so now is the best time to be that good customer, right? And so that's extremely important, because through crisis is when relationships are built. Everybody can be happy when everything's going perfectly. This is the time to forge those relationships with your suppliers. How can you add more value in all of your relationships? Extremely important. On the payment side. So we're actually going to do a webinar on that in a month, so stay tuned for that one. You need to understand the consequences that coronavirus will have and is having on your suppliers, customers, banks, and service provider, right? And then you also need to understand the consequences they will have on your AP success metrics. And so it might not be possible to achieve the metrics that you set. So we need to take that honest look in the mirror, right? And so we need to see, do we need to reset the bars, and more about that on our next slide here. And here are some other general tips that I have found incredibly useful, but also I think have resonated in my conversations as I've asked a lot of Treasury and finance leaders, what are things that are important for you to delivering success in the next normal? You need to communicate more with your employees, even more. You need to identify ways to keep your employees engaged, right? Maybe that's a virtual happy hour. Maybe you're having some sort of fitness challenge. You're taking photos of everyone's office and guessing. Maybe you're taking photos of people's dogs and guessing. And you seem like, it just seems kind of corny, but no, people love it. You need to keep your employees engaged. You need to communicate more with your suppliers, customers, banks, service providers. Be honest with them. Call them and ask them, what can we do to help you out? How are you doing? How's your family doing? What can I do to be more valuable to you? And what I'm starting to see, which is a little disturbing to me, I talked about this on my webinar yesterday, was banks. Banks are starting to pull away. Once again, the banks are kind of pulling away when people are trying to tap on their lines of credit. So let's be proactive, right, with our banks. Let's just know, right, are we going to pay, right, are we going to get paid? So we need that visibility, right? We need to have that cash forecast is going to go a little haywire. You want to control the type and tone of communications with all your business partners. That's incredibly important now. Everyone is a little bit on edge, right? And so just reaching out, how are you doing? How's your family doing? And then your folks that are communicating via email, let's really watch that, because now is a time where we can improve things or we can make them much worse. Again, we want to identify ways to keep our suppliers and customers and everybody engaged with us. Identify ways to offer more value. How about that? Wow, that's it. That's incredible. More value to your suppliers, customers, banks, and service providers. Maybe you need to engage your supply chain more, right? So how do you do that? And you need to realign your expectations with your boss, your staff, your suppliers, your customers, everyone you're engaged with. So let's all realign. We might have, we might be able to deliver even more. So let's set the bar even higher. But we need to make sure that we're all on the same page, because we don't want any miscommunication now. It is more possible now than ever. So let's be sure, that we're all communicating authentically with truth. Truth matters in your relationships. And so here's another thing that we really need. In AP, this is another concept that you're going to be hearing a lot more from me. We need remote control, right? Back in the day, we think remote control is the clicker, right? We're in a virtual, how do I click the button and control it virtually? So another cartoon, hopefully this one will make you smile. The first one did. I found a portal to another world. I found peril and adventure and the courage to survive, but I didn't find the remote. And this is probably a lot of folks, right, in the accounts payable world who didn't have those processes in place. They had manual processes. They're pushing paper around, and they're riding out trying to save the day on paying their suppliers and getting those relationships, and they're coming back. And where's my remote at? How do I do this remotely? And we'll talk a lot about how that's possible, but I think that's another term we're going to start to see, remote control, because what's going to happen is we're going to open business back up again, and unfortunately, the virus is going to come back and hit us again, and we're going to have to go back into our remote reality a little bit. So every company needs to have that remote control, and AP is a pillar of that. And so just a few quotes that I found, and this is my philosophy, and I think if you take this attitude with your relationships, suppliers, customers, employees, right, let's rise together. I love that. So Zig Ziglar, one of my favorites, and people have actually compared me to him before, honored for that. Fear has two meanings: forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours. So let's all work together and face everything and rise. The people that know me know that this is my life philosophy. Let me know what I can do for you, no matter if it's related to this content or now. I want to help everyone face everything and rise. And then another quote: we don't develop courage by being happy every day. We develop it by surviving difficult times and challenging adversity, and I would add to that, and creating opportunity. And so that is incredibly important. So you would think I would have all my notifications turned on after 500 webinars, but nobody's perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and start to dive into these accounts payable trends. Fantastic research from Ardent Partners. I have a hyperlink in there, a recent report, AP Metrics That Matter. And so let's talk about the evolution of accounts payable. This to me is still very encouraging. 55% of companies see accounts payable as very or exceptionally valuable. Wow. I would say when I was in Treasury many moons ago, that number was probably 15 or 20%. And so that's incredibly encouraging. However, now that people see it that way, everyone's like, hey, AP is going to be a strategic value center. Now, what do we need to do, right? And so let's take a look at our skill set in accounts payable. What skill sets do I need and what does my staff need? And this goes across the skills I'm going to talk about, go across the office of the CFO. But it's really interesting when you start to look at the expansion of duties, right? Again, from the Ardent Partners study. So customer service, fraud and compliance, right? That's a little bit of a stretch. That was usually a Treasury thing. So we're raising the bar. Full knowledge of the P2P process. You can't sit in your cubicle and have your little set of knowledge. You have to understand the whole process. 65% analytics and business intelligence. Now let's think about that a minute. Those of you who've been in Treasury and finance for a long time, did you really think 10 years ago that we'd be talking about accounts payable and analytics and business intelligence? Amazing, 65% payments, but this is Ernie's favorite, supplier relationship management, right? This is where you make that impact and you offer that value. So better supplier relationships give you more control of when you pay, how efficiently you pay, and also how you pay. So these are skills that I've been developing over the last probably 2 years, and so I've had many conversations. So I'm glad to see, and it's apparent, we'll talk about more, the number one skill for me that impacts value is interpersonal skills, relationship building. More on that later. Effective communication, two different things, written and oral. We have to have our blocking and tackling. We have to be more analytical. You have to be able to solve a problem. Everyone's gotten to face that challenge lately, right? You have to have a tech savvy. Whether anywhere in the office of the CFO, you have to embrace technology or it's going to run you over. We have to be a leader, but we also have to be able to be a follower, right? We have to have some innovative and entrepreneurial activity. And this is probably, when someone asks me, what's your value proposition? I will say it's my passion for learning and embracing change. And this is something that it's hard to teach. If someone has it, I'll take them all day, every day over someone that might have a little bit more experience. And then you want to know the knowledge of the relevant industries. The more you know about your business, the better. So other things, cool, the top barriers to AP success, right, from the survey, again, Ardent Partners, a high percentage of invoice exceptions. Think about that. What do you think the root cause of that, or a good way to alleviate that is? What about invoice payment approvals take too long? So what about too much paper? What does your mind tell you? Technology, but it has to be the right technology and the right partner. And what about the keys to future AP success, barriers? So again, invoices, approvals, too much payment. And then what about the drivers of future AP success? Systems that drive more efficiencies. Thank you. Analytics, enhanced collaboration, eradication of tactical tasks. One of the things that's a little surprising to me that's tactical tasks might not be a little bit, further up the chain, but I love this. Again, I love the transition I'm seeing in accounts payable, deeper, more agile analytics. I know you all are just dying to answer a polling question, so I'll go ahead and launch my first polling question. Just want to get a sense from everyone really at the volume of monthly invoices that you're looking at, and so that'll help me really kind of couch the value proposition and the business case part of the presentation. So I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our polling questions here today. Those of you interested in receiving CTP credits for today's webinar, you will have to answer all of our polling questions today. So in order to be mindful of our time, I'm going to go ahead and leave the polling question up for probably another 10 or 15 seconds, and then we'll start to dive in about delivering accounts payable success. And I'll talk about what that means pre-coronavirus and post-coronavirus. And so I see people always talk about tolls, what's the most important thing for AP? Well, let's talk about how you do it, right? So I want to give you some very actionable advice, a different way to think about things. And that's what's incredibly powerful in the webinars that I deliver, is that I'm getting you to think a different way to offer more value, and that is what you need. You need an innovative philosophy and strategy. So I'm going to go ahead and give you 2 more seconds. All right, let's go ahead and close the polling question. And I'll just share with you that So 63% of you are really good, high volume over 500, and then 20% between 100 and 500. So we've got 17% of you. So we've got all of you have a pretty good clip of invoices. And so one of the things, the component of that value proposition, a big piece, will be the cost of processing that invoice, which takes into account the hard dollar cost, but also those productivity costs as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to answer that polling question. So how do you deliver accounts payable success? Some of these things are going to sound like common sense, but they're incredibly compelling. And that's really what my niche is, communicating things that you wouldn't think about, that are common sense, right? That make you think and take actions. Sometimes it doesn't take a very complex solution to have a huge impact on the value you offer. So we need to define what AP success is, right? That sounds easy, but just think about it. How do you define AP success, right? I talked about this earlier. How have your metrics of success changed, right, in the next normal? You have to understand the skills of your AP team. You have to understand the skills gaps that exist in your AP team. You have to identify the technology gaps. I talked about assess where you're at, where you want to go, what do you need to get there, right? People, process, technology. What are your technology gaps? And then part of doing that is understanding your current systems, right? What do you use? Why do you use it? How do they communicate? How do they not communicate, right? Which is, I'm sure all of you have been through this process here over the past weeks as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the other things. We really want to understand the time spent on non-value-add activities and mitigate that. So I haven't seen enough research on how much time in accounts payable is spent by all involved, right? Not just our great AP professionals, but what about our approval people? What about our managers? What about our CFO? What about our treasury person? How much time are they spending in accounts payable, and why? And places where I've seen a lot of time, which I think is being misspent, is time on the phone, right, with issues, our suppliers, asymmetry of information. How do we communicate? Later, I'll show you amazing technology. You can communicate within the invoice, bring the invoices to life. Wow, talk about a productivity game changer. You want to assess current relationships with your internal AP customers. Again, let's look at everybody involved in the process from A to Z. You need to understand the impact of your actions on supplier relationships, especially now. What are the communications, issue resolving? So those things are just tremendously important. How do you collaborate with procurement and treasury to take more control of payments? And then we'll talk about this later, time permitting. You want to invest in relationships. And just because we're remote doesn't mean we can't impact and improve our relationships. Internally, within AP, right? Beyond AP at your company, externally, this is where you're going to create tremendous value in the, in the next normal. So how do we leverage technology to deliver AP success? Well, we need to do a deep dive into P2P from A to Z, right? So we need to have those processes, people, process, technology. I often tell people back in the day, I had to do all these Sarbanes-Oxley things where we had to map these things out. And those are a good place to start if you have them. You need to identify the types and sources of inefficiency. And so we'll go through and get into the weeds a little bit and tell you exactly how to do that. And then we'll show you how technology can help you address any of those issues that you find. You need to assess the impacts of inefficiency on each party that impacts your P2P process. Again, let's be mindful of everyone involved in the process, right? Of course we want to make our AP people happy, but what about our managers? What about if for some reason your CFO is involved? Really? Do you want your CFO getting irritated when he's trying to help you, right, approve accounts payable? Assess how much technology can mitigate these inefficiencies. And then finally, create and communicate a winning business case. This sounds easier said than done. I can tell you, even CFOs need to have this skill. It is an art as much as a science, and we'll give you some tips on that. If we don't get to spend as much time on that, given a time crunch, please reach out to me. I have a few blogs on that, but that's incredibly compelling. The good news is with AP automation, especially now, the business case makes itself. I think I'll give you a slide at the end that you can use, and you can take it right to your CFO. Now, remember, do not tell your CFO AP is a profit center. He'll kick you out of his office. All right, how do you evaluate your AP process? And so I love this graphic here. I've got some graphics here from my friends at Stampley, and so we'll really kind of dive into this, right? What's the process? Those of you who haven't been in the weeds in AP, well, it's time for you to get there because it's a tremendous place for opportunity. Accounts payable is probably the most complex business process in almost any company. And why hasn't it gotten our attention for so long, right? Glad to see that it's starting to get some. So you need to capture, code, and send, right? This seems easy, but we'll talk about that. Verify and approve, right? And means in terms of, right, those of us that are a little bit farther behind the curve in best practices and those of us that are really doing it and adding value. And what we always see these companies called best in class, best performers. So what do we do, right, to get to that best in class, or what's best in class for my company, right? So how are you capturing, right, the information? Is it paper versus email? Is it dedicated email versus multiple email? So that capture, you really want to have that relationship with your suppliers. Let the cat's meow is the EDI exchange, right? So let's make that easy, right? Coding, mapping GL accounts by department. I mean, this can be incredibly a place of great inefficiency. And so there are some solutions out there that really help on this side. Now wouldn't we love to help our accounting people not spend so much time and spin their wheels on that? And then we've got the send piece, right? Is that hard-coded versus dynamic approvals? And so these are just things when you start to look at your process, right? How do I capture? How do I code? How do I send in terms of people, process, technology? Right? What is the leading technology allowing me to do? What's the value of me from removing the inefficiency related to capture, code, send? Now, what about next stage? Verify and approve. Okay. What are we looking for in terms of verification? And if you are on the cutting edge, good for you. But I can tell you, I was at a company where it was not easy. So you want it to be easy. You want automated reminders, and we want to have that mobile functionality. Of course, now in the remote reality, that's incredibly important. For the approve stage, we don't want to make that difficult. Of course, this is a place where I see some place for a little bit of panic, where I showed you that first one. Oh, my CFO can't approve things on his computer or mobilely to make payments. What are we going to do, right? Has to be easy. We want automated providers. Again, we want that mobile functionality. Same thing on the payment side. We want that to be a painless process. We want automated reminders as well. So what about automated authorized payments? Man, you're saying the same things. Absolutely. This needs to go across your P2P process, and technology is going to give you so many areas to build dimensions of that business case. And then audit ready, we want it easy for internal auditors, external auditors, mobile functionality. No offense to any of my audit friends out there. When I was in Treasury, I had people in internal audit, external audit. We had to track the whole invoice, we had to go in the file cabinet. What are you going to do in the remote reality? How are you going to do an audit? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I don't want to scare people who are CFOs, but you probably just went through your, not too many weeks ago, your first quarter close, so I bet that was interesting. That's another webinar for us. So our assessment, again, keep it simple. People, process, technology. What about the people involved? Procurement, AP, accounting leaders, finance leaders, treasury leaders, ops leaders. Go and ask them, what could be done better in the P2P process? What are your areas of inefficiency? Now, for Zoom meeting, let's get everyone. Tell me what bothers you every day. It's incredibly powerful. Process, how do we exchange information? How do we capture it? How do we do our reporting? Not everyone needs the same report. Don't send the same AP success report to every single consumer that you have. Technology, how do we leverage technology? Email, ERP, Excel, many other systems. What's our technology stack? What happens if we add the right AP automation solution to that stack? Game changer. All right, now let's talk about a collaboration. Before that, let me go ahead. I know you guys really want another polling question, so I'll go ahead and answer that. So as we start to dive in the relationship side, I'm asking you to share with me how you would characterize the overall state of the relationships with your suppliers. And now let's just keep this current. So right now, as you sit, not good, poor communication, constant issues, not good, but getting better, acceptable, good, you communicate and collaborate effectively. And I don't know, be honest, this is an anonymous survey. So I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our polling questions here today. And of course, those of you interested in receiving CTP credits for today's webinar, you have to answer all of our polling questions today. I want to remind you that I can take your questions in the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel. And I'm always available after the webinar if you want to have a more in-depth discussion about any of the topics we cover today and also issues and challenges you're facing in the next normal. So let me go ahead. I'm going to close the polling question here. Let's just take a quick peek at the results. I'll offer a little color commentary because I really miss my sports, everyone. So, okay, I am happy that we have 33% of the folks in good. That's usually about what I've been seeing on my AP automation webinars over the past few years. Those of you, excuse me, who said, I don't know, wait for it, you know it's coming. That's your homework. Let's find out. So 49% acceptable, and so we still have a good way to go, right? I want everyone to be good. We communicate and collaborate effectively, and we can do that in the remote reality. So let's not lower our expectations. So thank you so much, everyone. So now let's give you some actionable advice. How do you communicate with your suppliers and collaborate in general, but also even more in the new remote reality? You need to invest in understanding the AR challenges of your suppliers, right? AP on our side done right means AR done right on their side, right? How, we can remove some cost on the AR processing side. Maybe you can help them remove their lockbox. Oh man, I was a Treasury person, boy, that would make my life probably. You need to communicate the benefits of electronification of that information exchange if you're still pushing paper back and forth, if you're getting multiple formats and emails and there are too many parties involved. Let's see how we can do a better job there. And you might want to educate the supplier on the value of electronic payments. That might be something for you to consider. Now, let's not try and dictate to people, right, how they take those payments. Let's collaborate with them and see how it makes sense for them and their culture. Again, let's not try and go out and get everybody to get on a ghost card. That is not what AP automation is all about. So let's not put our focus there. Let's focus on AP done right, P2P process. You can identify opportunities for early discount opportunities. Again, engage that supply chain. And then again, one more time, more efficient AP processing means more efficient AR processing for your suppliers. That's called adding value. The other thing that we want to do in improving collaboration is with technology, right? Let's be proactive. Let's remove asymmetry. Asymmetry is an information. And wait a minute, here it comes. You can by bringing your invoice to life. So as you can tell, I'm pretty excited about that because all I've seen over the last few years, that is a game changer. All right, how about internal collaboration, right? What do we need? Visibility. Can't manage what you can't see. You need visibility into all P2P related process. That's critical. You need visibility into all supplier interactions with and across departments. And this needs to be to folks that need it. Don't hide those interactions. Let's get that 360-degree view. You need the right dashboards with the right metrics. Again, you have different information consumers, right? AP, specialists, managers, controllers, treasury, procurement, those are a game changer. And don't hide metrics. Don't hide the treasury metrics from the AP specialists. And you need to collaborate with Treasury to understand the value in optimizing the payment type and timing, right? But again, let's work. Look like when we're enabling best practices. So we got email, you can scan, right? OCR is common, but OCR and AI, right? We'll talk about innovation in a little bit. You want to have automatic duplicate detection, right? on the coding side, you want to minimize data entry and automate coding with AI. And you want to look for a solution that's not going to outsource, right, some of these functions outside of their doors that really causes delays and causes errors as well. And then in Send, you want flexible approval workflows, one-click access to your invoices, anytime, anywhere device access. And so just the functionality, the flow, it makes sense. When you come in, you can see the people that develop the software understand it, right? What do you got going on? New invoices approved, rejected, awaiting payment, late invoices, bam. Export problems, right? Wouldn't you like to have a proactive notification if something's going to hold up your process? And so let's talk about verify and approve. Instant access to all supporting documents in one place. Oh man, I would have loved this in Treasury. So I had to approve payments, send me an AP run or send me a check, and I'd be like, what is this for? I want to go in and look. In-app communications tool. Here it is, people. Game changer. So you've got the invoice details. You can click in. Here is some interactive conversation. There's conversations going on internally with the right restrictions. Your suppliers can play in here, and it's just incredibly powerful. How much time does your staff spend internally disputing with each other, but also outside with your suppliers? And then in terms of the approval side, the leading technology has auto reminders, and then alerts if an invoice requires approvals based on approval limits. So another big piece of this is visibility, right, into those bottlenecks and what's going on and being proactive, right, and making people more productive. I just want to stress again the accounting side of this, the coding side of this. I don't think that gets enough attention, as we're all in love with getting everyone to pay by credit card, right? And so this piece right here is really what impacts the productivity. So I often talk about the productivity drag with AP gone wrong. And this tool, bringing the invoice to life, we're communicating, right? It's not a piece of paper. We can see it all. We can communicate. We can collaborate internally, externally. Amazing. And then in Authorize for payment, again, you want to have that final review and approved. And then something that can be compelling is the flexibility to use your existing payment system. And so your AP automation system provider, again, that not necessarily want them pushing you on how to make your payment. So that flexibility is actually compelling. And then the audit trail, oh man, I don't even know how people are going to do audits, but this is incredibly powerful as well. Again, that you can link to invoice details, timestamp, all activities, all documents, comments, everything is available. You can push those out. Invoice approval, right? Gina, a question has been submitted. Yes, so you can communicate, you can get notifications, and so those bottlenecks are gone. Again, bring the invoice to life. I say invoice is really the key to removing that productivity drag, and I think we've got a little bit off message there in being in love with payments, which can be incredibly important, but that's not what P2P done right should be the main focus. And so let's take a quick look at some technology trends. This also shows you where we're going, right, and some of that good traction that we've got. So, and then you accounts payable folks, you're like, wow, this is technology, and Treasury, you're like, wow, I need to collaborate more with AP because they probably know about more technology than I do. Never thought I'd say that. So people are going to move towards mobile apps, agile dashboards, digital payments. So if you look at these, you're like, that kind of aligns with what makes us successful. Now, we're just starting to see the role of AI in accounts payable. It's been a lot more prevalent in the accounts receivable world, and I'm not a fan of blockchain, but just again, not to dwell on this slide, there's a lot of information. Again, if you want a copy of the slides, and then this is a great study. Ardent Partners has fantastic content in terms of metrics. And so just kind of showing us some of the trends, and then just, these numbers here, I wouldn't get tied up. So what I'm trying to do is convey what you can see as the value and start to get that value proposition. So we see cost to process a single invoice, best in class, whatever that means, right? $2 and all of this $12.60. It's not these numbers, right? What matters is this is where I'm at, right? This is where I'm at. Maybe I'm at $15, right? Maybe I can get to $5. Man, that's $10 an invoice. That $500, 500 invoices a month, 1,000 times 12. Woo, that pays for my technology. What about your time? Where are you now? Where can you get to? How much value does that offer? Can I even take discounts? Can I negotiate discounts, right? And then all of these other things drive how much it costs and the productivity drag. What's my invoice exception rate? Where am I at? Where can I go? We want straight through processing. We want electronic payments. So all of these things fuel this best in class thing, but it's best in class for your company, right? What is the ROI from going from A to B? We don't have to get to the bleeding edge of things. For us, we can get there with the right technology partner out to where it offers us value. So I'm going to go ahead and launch another polling question. I do want to have some commentary on technology integration, so I am asking you to share with me your company's main accounting/financial system, QuickBooks Online, Sage Intacct, NetSuite, Oracle, or other, or you don't know them. Hopefully that it's more of you don't know. So I know there's a lot of different systems out there, so I'm imagining I'm going to get a lot of folks in the other category, but I do want to touch on the technology, and the technology stack is important. So your AP automation solution needs to be integrable with your systems, and really what happens is once you get your financial systems in the cloud, that makes everything kind of fall into place. So I often talk about the evolution of the CFO. Well, it wasn't really possible until we started having more and more CFOs in the cloud. That really opens your world in being able to impact performance across the enterprise. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the polling question up for just another few seconds for those of you who are interested in CCP credits, but I appreciate everyone's consideration answering the polling question. So let's go ahead and, all right, I'm going to close the polling question. And not surprising, the vast majority of folks fall in the other category, but I still wanted to see where we were at in terms of maybe something that I'm seeing in trends in terms of people migrating more towards that cloud-based solution. So thank you so much, everyone. So let's talk about AP innovation and AI. So that's a whole webinar, right? But I want to get you comfortable with that, and I want you to consider that for accounts payable. It's coming, right? It's a little bit young, but it's coming, and the opportunities are just going to get greater and greater. So AI's role in business. This is to get your CFO comfortable with AI. If he hasn't asked you about it yet, it's coming, right? Here's my value proposition for technology and AP, AI, RPA. I've done webinars on that, so have those recordings for you. It makes it easier for people to do their jobs. It makes it easier for customers to do business with your company. Mitigates business complexity and fuels growth. Okay, so I always stress, makes it easier for people to do their jobs. I fear automation. I fear AI. But wait a minute, it gives me much more of my day back. I can do something that's fun. Do I like to bang on my keyboard all day? Do I like to be on the phone all day? Do I like to do the same monotonous task over and over every day? Do I like to sit in my cubicle all day and not communicate? I hope not, right? We can do better. Now AI, this is just like cloud computing. I used to talk about cloud computing. My wife told me to stop saying cloud computing a few years ago, but it's like you're already doing it. Just think about it. What about social networking? Do you use Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, LinkedIn? Do you use Uber and Lyft? Familiar with Siri and Alexa? Do you use navigation apps? Thank God for navigation apps, or I wouldn't be able to get anywhere. Google Maps. Do you use Netflix? Oh, I have Netflix. Wow, you know, I'm surprised that hasn't crashed in the remote reality app. Spotify, Pandora. So it's something that you're already using. So again, learn to embrace it, right? Understand it, and be able to tell your CFO is going to come at you, right? What are we doing in AI in our finance system? AP, AR, Treasury. Make sure that you have enough knowledge to communicate why it does make sense for you to look at that and see how it fits. And then what's the potential role in the P2P process and where we're seeing things? Supplier information management, right? Contract management, procurement, AP automation and payment, and supply chain financing. So we're starting to see it more in AP automation. I know we can argue that supplier information management really falls under there, but let's not do that, right? We're all trying to be nice in our new remote reality, right? Just like I told you. So, I mean, there in more deeper dive in that, absolutely, in a later webinar, or after the webinar is over, on what's being done on AI. Really, where I'm seeing a tremendous value here is on the capture of that information, right, in that invoice. And so that's a big time saver that I'm seeing right now. So what about this business case. And so, yep, Ernie's told us all these great things. The good news is the business case for AP automation becomes more compelling, right? In the remote reality, any inefficiencies that you had or problems are probably magnified tenfold, 100-fold. And you're thinking, wow, how long is this going to take? I can tell you that the leading solutions, and this isn't going to be the case for everyone, but I've seen multiple stories of people getting up and running in a week or less, and not making us up, or a day or less. So it is the time. So how do you create a winning business case? Again, the business. Many of you may have seen me go through this before, but you need to know, you need to be thinking about this. You need to be ready to innovate. So this is incredibly important. What's a business case, right? How do you create it? So you got to create it and you got to communicate it. How do you create it? You got to have the problem statement. What are you trying to address, right? What is it? What are the consequences of not addressing them and the urgency in addressing them? So that's where I see this resonating. What is the business of usual cost? What is the business of unusual cost us, right? That probably goes up a lot more. What's the lay of the land, right? We have to look A to Z, right? What's the P2P process? People, process, technology, right? What are the potholes, right? Detail the inherent barriers that you might have in terms of people, process, and technology. So when you start to look at, right, where you are, where you want to go, it looks like Mount Everest. But when you start to pull away some of the inherent barriers, maybe it's attitudes that people have. It's just things we don't know, all of a sudden that mountain becomes a little bit less steep. And so we can get there. And potential solutions, notice the plural. You have to offer more than one option. So you need to make sure that as much as you think a solution provider, solution is great, let's make sure that we are being unbiased. And then, of course, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis, quantify the costs and benefits. And this is really important in the business case for AP automation, and I'll give you a lot of those benefits here in just a moment. And the executive summary, right? Even though it's very important, you need to have all your ducks in a row before you can craft the executive summary. And so I don't like to start with that, right? I like to end with that. This is where you set the table for success or failure, right? A poorly written executive summary keeps any project from getting off the ground, right? What's the other thing that keeps a project from getting off the ground? Mr. or Mrs. No, I hate everything, right? You know who's going to be the biggest proponent of not having your project go off the ground. Here's what you do. You engage that person right out of the gate. You have to tell them exactly why this is the greatest thing since sliced bread for them. You get them on your team. I knew that my CFO was going to do this to me. This is a true story. So I'm trying to get investment right in centralizing cash management. So there was a few people in accounts payable, one person in particular, remain nameless, that they're just going to be stubborn. They don't want to change, so they don't like anything. So I have a stakeholder meeting, talk about the project. CFO comes in, says, and I'll just call the person Joe, said, hey, Joe, what do you think about this project? And he was like trying to torpedo me, and Joe said, well, actually, at first I wasn't on board, but Ernie and I sat down and really walked through this, and my whole department really understands what the impact's going to be, and we think this is going to be great. And the CFO just kind of looks at me, and I was like, yeah, I saw that one coming. So let's be cognizant of the lay of the land, and that includes your culture, right, of change and innovation. So that's extremely important. So I kind of jumped the gun, right? Communicating a business case, winning business case, communication. I've seen so many people lose what they need because they can't communicate effectively the value proposition, right? Know your constituency, right? That's what I talk about. There's two constituencies that you need to worry about, not just who's got the purse strings. Who are you going to impact with your project? Who are you going to impact? Understand, communicate with them so they understand. What are the processes are going to change? What if their people are going to change? That's your constituency. Get them on board, and then the money guy will follow, right? Present with confidence and passion, right? The numbers need to make sense. It matters how you present them. You don't want to be a used car salesman. You want to be authentic, but you need to show energy and passion, right? I'm not excited about accounts payable. I don't know if everyone can do that, but that's what you need to do. And politics matter as much as I'm not a fan of politics. So let's make sure that we present with that confidence and passion. And also, believe it or not, you can get a buzz going. If you really go and engage everyone involved that you're going to impact across the enterprise, they'll start talking about it. Hey, Arnie came over and talked to me about this. What do you think? Did he come talk to you? Yeah, that is pretty cool. And that sounds cheesy, but it works. You need to clearly define the project roles, responsibility, and establish accountability with each stakeholder. So I like to have that stakeholder meeting. You need to understand why they're at your meeting and you need to understand what you expect from them in the scope of the project. We need to define how the pieces of the project fit together and the role that each person plays. You need to get everyone vested in success. You need to earn buy-in for your investment, right? And then this is where I see a lot of things dropped, but not only getting approval, but how do we communicate success? It's almost like, I won, I got my technology, and then they go run away and like, okay, but did it work? Why did it work? Communicate the value, stress your benchmarks for success, give people progress reports and metrics, and hold yourself accountable for the ROI of your project. What happens when you go to your performance review? Wouldn't you like to say, I led this AP automation project, and when we made the change, it's been saving us $200,000 a year for the past 3 years. That's pretty powerful. Pretty powerful stuff there. How would you, and that's something that you can do. Not a profit center, but I've saved us more money than my salary. My department has saved us more money than our salary. Give us more, right? Pretty powerful. All right, what about a few closing thoughts and recommendations? So here is your business case for AP done right. And these are things where we should look, right? When we're looking at our people, process, or technology, our process, right? Our code, our send, our approval. Let's look at these, but this is what going from A to B for you, where you're at, where you can be. You're going to mitigate invoice processing costs. Again, AP done right involves the right technology, the right people, and the right process. We talked a lot about the technology, talked about the process, and we talked about the people. What are the skills that your folks need to deliver value, right? What you're doing now, and then have that continual culture of continued success, right? All the time. You mitigate invoice processing costs. Boom, mitigate the payment of duplicate invoices. This happens much more than you might think. Can't manage what you can't see, right? And this is mitigated in some sense. It's not even possible in leading technologies. Mitigates the time spent on resolving supplier issues and disputes. Oh, when I saw some of the numbers of how many hours people were spending on the phone, you have, tens of AP folks on the phone 3 or 4 hours a day. It's just like, wow. And we didn't really want to invest in that because, AP is AP. AP is a cost of doing business. No, AP is a cost of doing business some set, but it can be done much better and it can offer value. And this is where where I'd like to point out again, bringing that invoice to life is incredibly important. Allows the discounts you have to be captured. It's amazing to me when I ask AP managers, treasury managers, do you know how effective you are at capturing discounts that you already have opportunities for? No. Do you know the opportunity cost of missing those? No. So that can be a game changer in and of itself. And then if you're able to pay, right, very effectively, you can have some dynamic discounting. Done right, impacts the productivity of employees processing, right, invoice, the productivity of people approving payments. It can mitigate our payment processing costs, right? We move a little bit away from checks. Checks aren't going away, but let's move our down checks right now. The way they're processed are costly, right? Risk. You can improve your working capital management. You're able to give a better estimate, right, of what those payables runs are going to look like as we understand, right, the dynamics there. And then, of course, if we do get some folks to go to commercial cards when it makes sense and they understand the costs on their side, then we get rebates. Here it is. I'm a CFO. I have talked to CFOs at roundtables, thousands, and I guarantee you, if you go in there with this business case and you can show the numbers and the productivity and what do CFOs love, you're removing the productivity drag, you're fueling growth, right? The cost, I'm going to save you a couple $100,000 a year, but by the way, we're going to fuel growth and business agility, and then their ears perk up. Growth, business agility. CFOs love the words. They don't like AP as a profit center. No. So what are the recommendations for action? And this is from 2019, but this is probably one of the most compelling sections that I've ever seen on a research report is the recommendations for action. And these are things that I strongly recommend. Adopt a customer service level mentality for AP, and that's more important than ever, right, in our next normal. We need to really manage those relationships, not customer service, not only externally, but internally, right? continue to transform AP. We need to move, if you're tactical in any way, let's move to a forward thinking, strategic value adding team. And look at that research. A lot of companies are getting there. Your team can get there. Position AP to add value across the enterprise. Look at those things we're looking at. Business intelligence, right? We can start to impact the contracts, right? With better supplier relationships, the timing of payments, the cost of payments. You should institute collaboration between AP, right? And everyone involved in the AP process, right? When you look at that AP automation solution, let's also look at that from the perspective of the approvers. Does it work for them? Does it add value to them? Most cases, probably not. You want to pursue a holistic, full, right, for AP automation that's really focused on AP automation. Create a culture of innovation to take advantage of RPA and AI. And then this is really important. Develop a capabilities roadmap for the future. And so I mean, usually technology can take you to a big leap, but you might want to have a stepped approach, in certain areas, and maybe you have the technology, but you don't want to roll it out all at once. But you do want to make sure that you're getting all of the value of that technology. So I see a lot of people on webinars, they'll say, yeah, I have a solution. And then I'll say, are you getting all these benefits out of it? And they're like, well, no. So, getting the right solution is half the battle. Getting your people to use it, getting the way to use it as it was intended, and optimizing the value, and also having a solution provider that's invested in your success. Customer success. Companies that have customer success managers, they really are changing the game in terms of what I've seen and throughout my Treasury career on that side of things. So I'm going to go ahead and skip to some closing comments here because, of course, I spoke quite a bit. But I wanted to really touch on the remote reality. Please send me your questions in the GoToWebinar control panel, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. So I'm going to go ahead and launch our final polling question as I make a few closing comments. A reminder, those of you interested in CTP credits, you'll have to stay on until the absolute conclusion of the webinar. So I really want to share with you, and I'll leave the polling question up for a minute or so. The other thing, in addition to showing the great benefits of AP automation, the business case, I'm also focused on providing resources about the remote reality. And so I've really been spending a lot of time thinking about how I can share my knowledge of having interactions with thousands of people up and down the office of the CFO for so many years. And I've got a section that I'll share with you, a blog on, it's on stamply.com/COVID-ID, and there's a lot of resources in there. So just to share a few of them with you if you haven't seen them, we've got 9 tips for managing remote employees, 10 ways to avoid mind-numbing virtual meetings. I'm very hopeful that the webinar today hasn't been mind-numbing. And then the art of email listening. So again, ways to really facilitate your productivity and the productivity of your teams as well. I'm going to go ahead and leave that polling question up for just a few more seconds. Make sure everyone love to answer, but my CTP folks who come for the awesome content and nothing else, you will have a few more seconds. Let's go ahead and close that. Thank you so much, everyone. And so I also want to make sure that everybody is aware that I am going to be partnering with several of my key strategic partners to offer the first ever full-blown Treasury and Finance virtual conference. A virtual conference is not a set of webinars, and I am honored to have Stamply as one of my key strategic partners. So you can find out more and register. Again, the hyperlink is there. Reach out to me if I haven't invited you to attend yet. This is really where we're going, and this is like an actual conference experience. And so it's not like a webinar. You go in the exhibit hall, you can network. The networking is absolutely amazing. The engagement, the noise-free environment. So I also want to take a moment to thank my webinar partner today, Stamply. Again, their commitment to thought leadership helps makes this webinar possible, and they've been very, very receptive to me changing my content to be really focused on adding value in the remote reality. Once again, everyone, stay safe and stay healthy. Again, my sincerest appreciation for all of you that have friends and family on the front lines of fighting the coronavirus. I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you and the time that you've invested with me today. Make the rest of your day great, everyone. Till next time.